The stars looked different from the observation deck of the United Earth Space Station. Dr. Alan Powell pressed his hand against the thick glass and stared at the unfamiliar ship that had appeared 3 days ago. It was beautiful, sleek curves, of silver blue metal that seemed to flow like water, with strange lights pulsing along its hull. The alien vessel was 5 times larger than anything humans had ever built. "Still trying to figure them out?" a voice asked behind him. Alan turned to see Commander Susan White. Her uniform was perfectly pressed despite the chaos of the past 72 hours. "They chose an interesting time to show up," Alan said. 2 months after our first successful faster-than-light jump." Susan nodded. "Coincidence?" "I stopped believing in those around day 1, Alan replied. The entire world had changed when the massive ship appeared just beyond lunar orbit. After decades of debate about whether intelligent alien life existed, the question was answered with a vessel larger than most cities. "They're ready for you in the meeting room," Susan said. "President Garcia wants her best minds there when they return." Alan followed Susan through the station corridors. Crews worked frantically to make everything presentable. The first meeting with the aliens yesterday had been brief, mostly introductions through their translator devices. Today they would discuss actual terms. The central meeting room had been converted from a research lab into something resembling a formal diplomatic space. President Laura Garcia stood with her advisors. Frank Miller, Earth's chief diplomat, reviewed notes on his tablet. "Dr. Powell," the president nodded. "Good of you to join us. Your work on the Parker Drive is partly why we're in this position." Alan felt uncomfortable with the praise. His team had only refined the theories that made faster-than-light travel possible. He hadn't expected it would trigger first contact with an interstellar government. The station's alert system chimed gently. "The Galactic Council representatives have docked," a voice announced. Everyone straightened as the door slid open. 3 aliens entered, each different from the others. The leader stood nearly 7 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Ambassador Krell, as he had introduced himself yesterday, had 4 arms and moved with unsettling grace. Behind him came a smaller green-skinned being with large eyes that blinked sideways, and a massive creature covered in what looked like polished stone plates. "President Garcia," Krell said, his translator device converting his musical sounds into English. "We appreciate your hospitality. The Galactic Council extends its formal greetings to Earth." The president stepped forward. "We're honored by your presence, Ambassador. We have many questions." "As expected," Krell replied. His large eyes studied each human carefully. "Your species has reached an important developmental milestone. The Council oversees 247 spacefaring civilizations. We maintain peace, manage resources, and ensure stable development throughout this sector of the galaxy." Frank Miller spoke next. "Your arrival suggests you've been watching us for some time." Krell's upper arms made a gesture like a shrug. "We monitor all developing worlds. When a species achieves faster-than-light capabilities, we make contact." The stone-plated alien stepped forward. "I am Overseer Krethnall," it rumbled through its translator. "The Council has studied human history extensively. Your development has been unusually rapid." Something in the way he said this made Alan uncomfortable. "We've had our struggles," President Garcia acknowledged, "but we've unified our planet and reached for the stars." "Yes," Krell said. "Most impressive. The Council is prepared to offer Earth membership as a developing species. This includes technology exchange, defense partnerships, and access to established trade routes." Frank looked at the president. "That's quite generous." "The Council believes in supporting young species," Krell said. "We can help humanity avoid the mistakes others have made." The meeting continued for hours. The Council representatives explained their structure, the benefits they offered, and the responsibilities Earth would have. Everything sounded reasonable, even generous. When the aliens finally left to return to their ship, the humans gathered to discuss. "Their technology is centuries beyond ours," Frank said. "The medical advances alone could transform life on Earth." President Garcia nodded. The defense benefits are significant too. They've mentioned at least 3 predatory species that we would have eventually encountered on our own. Only Commander White and Allen seemed reserved. Dr. Powell, you've been quiet, the president noted. Allen chose his words carefully. It feels too easy. They arrived immediately after our first jump. They're offering tremendous technology with very few apparent strings. You think they have hidden motives? Frank asked, frowning. I think any species that manages 247 different civilizations doesn't do so by being careless or overly generous, Allen replied. Susan added, their interest in our military capabilities and resource management seemed particularly focused. The president sighed. I understand your concerns, but we can't refuse this opportunity based on suspicion alone. We'll proceed cautiously. Later that night, Allen couldn't sleep. He reviewed the scan data of the alien ship from his tablet. Something about their technology bothered him. He focused on the energy readings from the cultural exchange devices the Council had left behind. The patterns weren't consistent with simple information storage. They pulsed in regular intervals, sending signals that the station's systems couldn't decode. Allen's door chimed. Commander White entered, looking as troubled as he felt. You're seeing it too? She asked. Allen nodded. These devices are transmitting something more than they told us. Susan sat heavily in the chair across from him. I've reviewed their treaty 3 times. The language is careful. They offer protection while limiting our independent expansion. We get technology but must follow their development guidelines. Control without seeming to control, Allen murmured. Exactly. Susan looked out the window toward the massive council ship. Did you notice how they classified us? Their databases call humans a Type 3 volatile species. I asked what that meant, and Ambassador Krell changed the subject. Allen pulled up new data on his screen. Look at these emissions from their gifts. They're not just communications. These patterns match neural frequencies. Susan's expression darkened. You think they're trying to influence us somehow? I don't know yet, Allen admitted. But I plan to find out. 3 days later, Earth's governments voted overwhelmingly to accept the Council's membership offer. The aliens provided the first wave of technology transfers, medical devices, agricultural systems, and educational databases. Only Allen, Susan, and a small team continued looking deeper. In a secure lab, they disassembled one of the Council's cultural exchange terminals. There, Allen pointed to a tiny component nestled deep within the device. That has no connection to the stated purpose. Engineer Diane Clark examined it under a microscope. It's generating a field of some kind. Very weak but present. Can we block it? Susan asked. Maybe, Diane replied. But first we need to understand what it does. As celebratory events marked humanity's entry into galactic society, no one noticed the small resistance forming. No one except Overseer Krethnal, who watched the humans from the Council ship and reported back to his superiors. Containment procedures are in place, he communicated. These humans show concerning independence, but the integration technology is deploying as planned. Within 1 generation, they will be properly controlled. What the Council didn't realize was that humans had spent centuries developing resistance to control. And unlike other species they had encountered, humans didn't yield easily to subtle chains, no matter how advanced the technology that forged them. 3 years passed since first contact with the Galactic Council. Earth had changed. Sleek alien technology now stood alongside human buildings in every major city. Council medical stations treated diseases that once had no cure. Farms used alien methods to grow more food than ever before. Allen Powell looked out the window of his small lab, hidden beneath an old mining facility in Colorado. On the surface, everything seemed better. Below that surface, Allen and his team had discovered the truth. They're expanding the network, Diane Clark said, entering the room with a tablet. Her eyes showed the tiredness they all felt. 17 new relay stations installed across North America last week. Allen nodded. Same in Europe and Asia. The coverage is almost complete. What the general public saw as helpful communication towers were actually emitters of subtle signals. Signals that made humans just a little more agreeable, a little less likely to question council directives. The door opened again, and Susan White entered. She no longer wore her commander's uniform. Officially, she had retired. Unofficially, she led their growing resistance. "We have confirmation from the Mars colony," Susan said. "It's worse there. Confined spaces, higher concentration of council tech. People are changing faster." Greg Johnson, a former intelligence officer who joined their group last year, pulled up images on the main screen. They showed the Mars colony with council additions built into every structure. "The colonists abandoned 3 critical life support projects last month," Greg explained. "All were self-sufficiency initiatives. Now they're completely dependent on council supply ships." "Exactly as planned," Alan said bitterly. "Create dependency while making us think it's progress." Their small group had grown to over 200 members worldwide. Most worked normal jobs while secretly gathering information on council activities. Each had noticed small things wrong about the alien presence. "What about the president?" Diane asked. Susan shook her head. "President Garcia wears their health monitor day and night. She hasn't questioned a council directive in over a year." Alan pointed to their own research. "We've made progress, though. The blocking devices work at close range. We can temporarily disrupt their influence signals." 3 days later, Alan walked through Denver's busy streets. New council buildings rose above the city, shining with strange materials. Humans and the occasional alien mixed on the sidewalks. Most humans now wore council health monitors, slim bands on their wrists that supposedly tracked vital signs. Alan entered the Central Administration Building for his scheduled meeting. As a respected scientist, he maintained his public position while working with the resistance. It provided valuable access. "Dr. Powell," a voice called. Alan turned to see Overseer Krethnall approaching. The large stone-plated alien had become Earth's primary council contact. "Overseer," Alan nodded politely while activating the small blocking device in his pocket. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I make it my business to stay informed about Earth's scientific progress," Krethnall said. "Your work on adapting council? Technology has been noticed." Alan kept his face neutral. "Just doing my part for the partnership." "Indeed." The alien's eyes studied him carefully. "I understand you've requested access to the council's primary database again." "Just research," Alan explained. "Better results when I understand the underlying principles." Krethnall made a gesture that Alan had learned meant mild disagreement. "Some knowledge is reserved for full council members. Earth is still in its integration phase." "Of course," Alan said. "We're grateful for what you choose to share." The alien seemed satisfied. "Speaking of sharing, a new council representative arrives tomorrow. Trevlock specializes in genetic compliance. Your species has shown remarkable adaptability." Alan felt a chill but kept smiling. "We're known for that." Later that evening, Alan met Susan at their backup location, a basement beneath an old bookstore. Their main lab might be compromised. "Genetic compliance," Susan repeated after Alan explained. "That doesn't sound good." "It's an escalation," Alan agreed. "They're moving faster than we expected." Greg arrived with Diane. Their faces showed they had news. "We accessed some restricted council communications," Greg said. "They've classified Earth as a containment species. We're not being integrated into the Galactic Council. We're being contained until we're no longer a threat." Diane opened her tablet. "There's more. Other species have been through this process. Their development was stopped completely." She showed them images of alien worlds. Beautiful cities but static, unchanged over centuries. The inhabitants appeared content but lacked the drive that defined humanity. "They're worried about us," Susan said. "Our adaptability scares them." "It should," Alan replied, "because their control technology has a flaw they don't know about." He pulled out a small device and set it on the table. "Humans adapt to everything, even their neural influence tech. The signals that worked 3 years ago are getting less effective. They've had to increase the strength 5 times already. And, you think we'll develop immunity? Greg asked. Not exactly, Alan explained. But our brains form new pathways around the influence. Given enough time, we would adapt naturally. But we don't have that time. He activated the device. It projected a model of human brain activity. This is what I've been working on. A way to accelerate our natural resistance. A counter signal that disrupts their influence and helps the brain recover faster. Does it work? Susan asked. Alan nodded. I've tested it on myself and volunteers from our group. Short exposure to their tech no longer affects us. Longer exposure still does, but recovery is quicker. We need to mass produce these, Diane said. Already? Started, Alan replied. But there's another problem. This new council representative coming tomorrow, the genetic specialist. If they start altering human genetics to make us more susceptible, then we're out of time, Susan finished. On the distant Horizon colony, the situation had already reached crisis point. The small settlement on Proxima Centauri B had been established just before first contact. Now it suffered under the heaviest council restrictions. Nathan Brooks, the colony leader, faced an impossible decision. Council ships had arrived with their genetic compliance team, but also carried essential supplies the colony needed. We need those medical supplies, his assistant said, but their price is too high. Nathan looked out at the struggling colony. No more council adjustments. We'll find another way. When he refused the council team entry, they responded by declaring a quarantine protocol and blocking all shipments. The nearest Earth ships were months away. What the council didn't know was that Horizon had been in contact with Alan's resistance. Their counter-signal devices had already reached the colony, and the council's control measures had created exactly what they feared most. Humans with nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. Back on Earth, Alan's team prepared for the arrival of Trevlox. The genetic specialist represented a turning point. If they couldn't stop the Council's plans now, humanity's future would be forever altered. Tomorrow, Susan told the gathered resistance members, we show them why trying to control humans always backfires. The arrival of Trevlox changed everything. Unlike the other Council representatives, the genetic specialist didn't try to appear friendly. The tall, thin alien with pale gray skin moved through the United Earth headquarters with cold efficiency. 4 assistant aliens followed, carrying strange equipment. The human genome is surprisingly adaptable, Trevlox told the gathered Earth officials. Our health optimization protocol will benefit your species greatly. President Garcia nodded, with the same blank smile she had worn for months. The Council health monitor on her wrist pulsed with soft blue light. We trust the Council's wisdom, she said. From the back of the room, Alan watched with growing concern. He had managed to get into the meeting by claiming scientific interest. His own blocking device hummed quietly in his pocket, protecting him from the influence signals that filled the room. We will begin with your colony worlds, Trevlox continued. Smaller populations are easier to process. The main Earth population will require more extensive preparations. No one in the room objected. Not a single government official questioned what health optimization actually meant. Alan slipped out quietly before his anger became visible. Outside, he sent an encrypted message to Susan. It's happening, they're starting with the colonies. The response came quickly. Horizon already fighting back. Come to base immediately. At their hidden facility, the Resistance Command Center buzzed with activity. Diane had established communications with all human colonies, creating a network the Council couldn't monitor. Greg worked with a team analyzing Council technology they had captured. Susan directed everything with calm efficiency. Horizon refused the genetic treatments, Susan told Alan when he arrived. The Council cut off their supplies in response. They're calling it quarantine procedures. Greg brought up images on the main screen. The small Horizon colony looked vulnerable against the massive Council ships in orbit. They've got 3 months of supplies at best, Greg said. After that, they either accept genetic modification or starve, Alan finished. Classic council tactics. Diane joined them, excitement visible on her tired face. But we have something the council doesn't expect. She led them to the lab where her team had been working day and night. On the table sat hundreds of small devices, similar to but more advanced than the blocking devices they had been using. The counter signal 2.0, she explained. It doesn't just block their influence. It helps the human brain recognize and permanently reject their control patterns. Alan picked one up. You've tested it? On everyone here, Diane confirmed. Once activated, it needs just 6 hours to create lasting resistance. Even their strongest signals can't affect us afterward. Susan studied the devices. How many can we make? Thousands already, Diane replied. We have production running in 20 locations worldwide, and they're small enough to smuggle anywhere. Even to the colonies, Alan realized. Susan nodded, grimly. Horizon first, they need our help most urgently. On Horizon, the situation grew worse daily. Colony leader Nathan Brooks watched the council ships through his office window. The colony's food supplies dwindled, while medicine for the sick ran dangerously low. They sent another message, his assistant reported. They're offering emergency supplies if we accept their medical team's assistance. Nathan shook his head. We've all seen the reports from other colonies. Their assistance means genetic modification. Sir, people will start dying soon. I know, Nathan replied quietly. But what the council wants will kill who we are. The decision weighed heavily on him until later that night, when an unmarked Earth ship managed to slip through the council blockade using experimental stealth technology. The small craft landed at the edge of the colony, carrying not supplies but something more valuable, crates of Diane's counter-signal devices and instructions from Earth's resistance. This changes everything, Nathan told his colony council, after testing the devices. We can resist their influence technology. Now we just need to survive until help arrives. The colony implemented strict rationing, while Nathan devised a plan. They would appear to negotiate with the council, stretching out talks while the counter-signal devices did their work among the colonists. Back on Earth, Alan entered the Central Council facility in Denver with false credentials. Months of careful work had earned him limited access to their systems. While Council aliens focused on their genetic program, he planted Diane's devices throughout their headquarters. As he finished placing the last device in a ventilation shaft, a voice behind him made him freeze. Humans are predictably curious, Overseer Krethnall said, but rarely so deliberately intrusive. Alan turned slowly. The massive alien blocked the corridor, stone plates shifting as he moved forward. Overseer, Alan nodded calmly despite his racing heart. Just inspecting the environmental systems. Your species lies poorly, Krethnall replied. We have been monitoring your movements. Your resistance is noted but ultimately meaningless. If it's meaningless, why are you increasing control measures? Alan asked, abandoning pretense. The alien's expression changed slightly. Because your species represents a unique problem. Most species accept guidance. Humans resist in ways we have not encountered before. Maybe that should tell you something. It tells us you require stronger measures, Krethnall stated flatly. The genetic compliance program will correct these deficiencies. Security aliens approached from behind the Overseer. Alan knew he couldn't escape, but he didn't need to. The devices were already working. You've miscalculated, Alan said. Controlling humans isn't like controlling other species. The harder you push, the harder we push back. A predictable sentiment, Krethnall replied. Your resistance has been anticipated and will be overcome. As they took Alan into custody, he smiled slightly. The council thought they had captured a troublemaker. They didn't realize they had just brought their biggest problem into the heart of their operation. On the Horizon colony, council ships finally landed. Trevlox personally led the team carrying genetic modification equipment and emergency supplies. Your resistance was illogical and harmful to your people, the specialist told Nathan as they met in the colony center. Now you will receive the benefits of council guidance. Nathan nodded respectfully while around them colonists watched with seemingly defeated expressions. What Trevlox couldn't detect was that every human present wore a counter-signal device. "We're ready for your assistance," Nathan said. When the council team activated their influence equipment to make the colonists compliant for the genetic procedures, nothing happened. Trevlox adjusted settings, increasing power, but the humans remained clear-eyed and defiant. "Your technology has a serious flaw," Nathan said, dropping all pretense. "It doesn't work on humans who know it's there." For the first time in council records, a containment species had not just resisted control, they had become immune to it. And as council ships across the galaxy reported similar failures, the Galactic Council faced a frightening reality. Humanity was breaking free. The council prison cell felt cold and empty. Alan sat on the hard surface that served as a bed, watching the strange energy field that blocked the doorway. 3 days had passed since his capture. He had been questioned repeatedly, but revealed nothing important. What the council didn't realize was that his capture was part of the plan. In the cell next to his, 2 other resistance members waited. Ben Harris and Lisa Jordan had been captured weeks earlier. Through quiet whispers when guards weren't listening, they had coordinated their actions. "Tonight," Alan whispered as a guard passed. "Be ready." The guard, a tall, blue-skinned alien, paused at his cell. "Silence, human. The overseer will speak with you again soon." Alan nodded obediently. The moment the guard left, he reached into the lining of his boot where a small device remained hidden. The council's scans had missed it because it wasn't active. Now he pressed the activation switch. Nothing seemed to happen, but throughout the detention center, microscopic nanobots, released from the device, began spreading through the ventilation system. They carried Diane's counter-signal program directly to the council's central computers. Meanwhile, on Horizon Colony, the situation had changed dramatically. The council forces had retreated to their ships when their influence technology failed completely. Trevlox, the genetic specialist, reported the failure to the High Council with growing concern. "The humans have developed resistance," he explained via communication link. "Our standard protocols are ineffective." High Arbiter. Zix Vorn's image flickered on the screen. The ancient being looked disturbed. "This is unprecedented. Increase to emergency containment level." "We attempted that," Trevlox replied. "Their resistance appears to be spreading. Other colonies report similar failures." The High Arbiter's multiple eyes narrowed. "Then we must proceed to final measures. Prepare the planetary pacification field." This was the Council's ultimate weapon, a technology that could envelop an entire planet in a field that would render all technology useless and subdue the population through direct neural suppression. It had only been used 3 times in Council history, and each time had effectively ended a species-independent development. On Earth, Susan White received the warning from their intelligence sources. "They're bringing in their big weapon," she told the Resistance leadership. "Diane, how close are we?" Diane looked up from her workstation. "The countermeasures are ready, but untested. We've never seen this pacification field in action." "We know how it works in theory," Greg added. "It uses the same basic principles as their influence technology, just thousands of times stronger." Susan made her decision. "Deploy the countermeasures to all colonies and major Earth cities, and send the signal to Alan's team." In Denver, the Council headquarters suddenly experienced system failures. Alarms blared as their control networks reported widespread intrusion. Overseer Krethnal rushed to the central command room. "What is happening?" "Unknown program in the system," a technician reported. "It's spreading to all networks. Isolate it," Krethnal ordered. "We cannot," came the reply. "It appears to be coming from inside our secure areas." The Overseer immediately thought of their human prisoner. He headed for the detention area only to find chaos. The cell energy fields had failed and the human prisoners were gone. Alan, Ben, and Lisa moved quietly through the Council building's maintenance tunnels. Each carried a small device that blocked the Council's tracking systems. "The central processor should be 2 levels down," Ben whispered, checking a small map they had memorized. They reached a sealed door marked with Council symbols. Lisa, who had studied their language, read it carefully. Main system core. This is it? Alan placed a small device on the door's control panel. The Council's advanced lock system was designed to withstand most hacking attempts, but not the specific vulnerabilities Diane had discovered in their architecture. The door slid open. Inside, massive crystalline structures pulsed with energy and light, the heart of the Council's Earth operations. Perfect, Alan said as they entered. He pulled out the main countermeasure device Diane had designed. It looked simple, just a small cylinder with a few controls. How long will it take? Lisa asked, watching the entrance. Just a few minutes to interface with their system, Alan replied, connecting the device to a port. Once it uploads, every piece of Council technology on Earth will have our counter program. Ben kept lookout while Alan worked. Someone's coming, he warned after a few tense minutes. Almost done, Alan replied, fingers moving quickly over the controls. There. The cylinder glowed blue, then green. The crystalline structures around them flickered, then stabilized with a slightly different pattern. The counter program was in. Time to move, Alan said. They headed for their extraction point as alarms began to sound throughout the facility. Above Earth, the Council's command ship arrived. It carried the planetary pacification device, a massive projector that could blanket the entire planet with suppression fields. High Arbiter Zixvorn had come personally to oversee the operation. Begin final containment procedures, the Arbiter ordered. Earth has proven too volatile for standard measures. The massive device powered up, drawing energy from the ship's core. Below, in cities across Earth, humans looked up at the massive vessel now visible in daylight. In the Resistance base, Susan and Diane watched the ship on their monitors. They're powering up something big, Greg reported. Our countermeasures are in place, Diane said. If Alan succeeded, the Council's entire system should be infected with our program. The moment arrived. The Council ship released a pulse of energy that spread across Earth's atmosphere. It was designed to overwhelm all human technology and neural patterns, rendering the population compliant and their systems useless. Instead, something unexpected happened. The pulse reached Earth but encountered Diane's modified countersignal. The two technologies interacted in a way the Council had never anticipated. The pulse reflected back toward the Council ship, amplified by the countersignal. On the command ship, systems failed suddenly. The High Arbiter watched in disbelief as controls went dark. What is happening? He demanded. Our own field is being reflected back at us, a technician reported with alarm. All systems are failing. For the first time in Council history, their ultimate weapon had been turned against them. The ship drifted powerless, its crew unable to respond. Across Earth, humans remained unaffected thanks to the countermeasures. In fact, the reflected pulse had cleared out the last remnants of Council-influenced technology. Every human was now free from their subtle control. As the Council's main ship drifted helplessly, smaller human vessels surrounded it. Admiral Carter of Earth's Defense Forces opened communications. High Arbiter, he said calmly. It appears your containment strategy has failed. We suggest discussion of new terms. In the Council ship's command center, Zixvorn faced the first major defeat in thousands of years of Council history. A species had not only resisted containment, but had turned their own technology against them. How? He asked simply. On the screen, Admiral Carter's expression remained neutral. You tried to control a species that refuses to be controlled. Every measure you took made us more determined to resist. As human ships escorted the disabled Council vessel to Earth orbit, the message spread across Council space. The unthinkable had happened. A containment species had broken free. And soon, others would follow their example. Humanity had not just saved itself. It had changed the galaxy forever. 10 years had passed since the Galactic Council first arrived at Earth. The galaxy looked very different now. Alan Powell stood on the observation deck of the United Species Assembly Station. His hair had gone gray, but his eyes remained sharp and focused. Below him, Earth shone blue and green in the darkness of space. Around the planet, ships of various designs moved between orbiting stations. Some were human-made, others belonged to 24 alien species that had become Earth's allies. "Dr. Powell," a voice called. "The final session is about to begin." Alan nodded to the young aide. "I'll be right there." He took a moment to appreciate how much had changed. After humanity broke free from Council influence, everything had happened quickly. The counter-signal technology had spread to other controlled species. Many had risen up against their Council overseers. The carefully managed galactic order had collapsed within 3 years. In the main assembly chamber, representatives from 47 worlds gathered around a circular table. Susan White sat in Earth's chair, her military uniform replaced with diplomatic attire. At 82, she remained a commanding presence. Diane Clark sat beside her, now leading Earth's scientific exchange program. The former Galactic Council. "Leadership has arrived," announced the assembly speaker. The chamber doors opened. High Arbiter Zix Vorn entered, flanked by guards from various species. Once the most powerful being in known space, the ancient Eldari now looked diminished. Behind him came other former council leaders, including Overseer Krethnal. "This assembly calls to order the final reconciliation proceedings," said the speaker, a tall being from a species called the Nuvari. They had been one of the first to join humans in rebellion. Susan stood. 10 years ago, your council attempted to contain and control humanity. You classified us as dangerous and decided we should not be allowed to develop freely." Zixvorn's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "We acted on thousands of years of experience. Volatile species like humans have caused great destruction in the past." "You acted out of fear," Susan replied, "and from a desire to maintain your power." The proceedings continued as evidence was presented. Records from council archives showed centuries of suppression. The Eldari and 6 other ancient species had systematically stunted the development of dozens of younger civilizations. For nearly 10,000 years, Diane explained to the assembly, the council founders maintained control by providing limited technology while introducing subtle influence measures. Any species showing too much independence was contained, their development carefully managed to prevent them from becoming rivals. When the evidence finished, Zix Vorn was allowed to speak. "We brought peace to a chaotic galaxy," the High Arbiter said. "Before our guidance, species regularly destroyed each other. We prevented countless wars." "By taking away freedom," Alan responded. "By deciding which species could advance and which should remain limited." Frank Miller, now Earth's senior diplomat, stepped forward. His practiced voice carried through the chamber. "The Council's fundamental mistake was believing control creates better outcomes than cooperation. Humans proved this wrong. When we broke free, we didn't seek revenge. We built a new kind of community based on equal partnership." Around the table, representatives nodded. The alliance of free species had grown rapidly after Council authority collapsed. Member worlds traded technology freely. Cultural exchange flourished. Species that had been separated for millennia now worked together. "This assembly does not seek punishment," Frank continued. "We seek understanding and a new beginning. Former Council worlds are welcome to join as equal partners, even the founding species." Zix Vorn seemed surprised. "You would accept us after what we tried to do to your kind?" "We learned something important from this conflict," Susan replied. "Fear of difference leads to control. But embracing difference creates something stronger than any single approach." The assembly voted unanimously to offer membership to all former Council worlds. Most accepted immediately. Some of the founder species, including the Eldari, requested time to consider. Later that day, Alan met with a small group of scientists from 12 different species. Their research cooperative occupied a large section of the station. "The new communication system is ready for testing," said Lethmore, a young Eldari scientist who had rejected his species' traditional views. "It will connect worlds faster than anything the Council ever developed." Alan smiled at the irony. The old Council had feared human unpredictability, yet now that very quality drove innovation throughout known space. Species that had been stagnant for centuries were developing again, finding their own paths. On Earth's moon, the Diplomatic Academy had just graduated its first class of mixed-species ambassadors. They gathered for a ceremony overlooking the Earth. Nathan Brooks, now Earth's Colonial Affairs Director, addressed them. "The galaxy has entered a new age," he told the young diplomats. "For millennia, development was controlled by a few who feared change. Now we embrace the unknown together." Among the graduates sat representatives from 30 species, including several young Eldari who had broken with tradition to join the new galactic community. That evening, Susan White stood in her office preparing to retire after decades of service. Captain Ryan Peterson, her chosen successor, joined her for a final briefing. "The exploration fleet departs tomorrow," Peterson said. 10 ships, crews from 7 species. We'll be the first to venture beyond former council space. "Nervous?" Susan asked with a smile. "Excited," Peterson replied. "No one knows what we'll find out there." "That's the point," Susan said. "The council tried to create a galaxy without surprises. We've chosen a different path." As Susan packed her belongings, she found an old device in her desk drawer, one of the original counter-signal protectors from 10 years ago. Such a small thing to have changed the course of galactic history. On the other side of the station, Alan Powell prepared for his own retirement. He had accepted a teaching position at the new Galactic Research Center, where species from across known space would study together. In his quarters, Alan received an unexpected visitor. Overseer Krethnal, no longer wearing council insignia, requested a meeting. "I wish to understand," the former overseer said, "before returning to my homeworld. How did humans resist so effectively? We had contained 17 other volatile species successfully." Alan considered the question. The council's fundamental error was believing that control creates stability. In humans, it creates the opposite. The harder you pushed, the more we pushed back. "A lesson we learned too late," Krethnal acknowledged. "Not too late," Alan replied. "Your people have joined the Alliance. Your scientists work alongside ours. The difference is that now everyone chooses their own path." As the former overseer left, Alan turned to the window. Beyond the station, the vast galaxy stretched endlessly. For the first time in thousands of years, its future wasn't predetermined by a controlling few, but open to all who wished to explore it. The Council had tried to control humanity. Instead, humanity had freed the galaxy.